Hi, Kathy.
Hey, folks, we're going to get started in just a minute.
Oh, really? I like that. I should have done that. I sent down.
We'll give it another minute. And for the folks in the room, we apologize for the excessive heat and feeling like you're sitting in a sauna right now. Apparently the heat is broken in here. Well, not broken, but
Hey, Jeff, are you in 1E?
yes, we are.
Oh my God, that was so hot yesterday. I said, well, I was sitting there with Kissel and Kissel said, oh, I like it like this. I said, oh my God, it must be like 80, 85 degrees in here. It was awful.
Yes, it's not the kind of steam bath I would like to be in right now.
Did your meeting go faster as a result? Maybe
No.
maybe it's a message.
No, it didn't. As a matter of fact, it didn't.
Oh, well.
I had him call and say, what is going on with the heat in here?
To which they said, please allocate us more money.
No, I've given them more money.
I was gonna say they got a significant increase last year for building maintenance.
Exactly.
This is not fortuitous to asking for more money.
Yeah, we had 2 elevators down yesterday in the building as well.
Yeah, they've been working on those, so I think that those are more repair work that's going on.
And the moving walkway going up to the Capitol as well.
The what?
The
Escalator?
the moving walkway in the concourse.
The people mover.
People mover. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Be the right word.
The elevators have been put off for a while. Again, they got the money in the last budget to work on those finally, but those have been, I expected them to be doing most of the work here off session, so I'm not shocked that they were down. I think at one point you may have only had one going.
I think you're right.
Our building is old and there are no longer parts for certain mechanical things in the building.
Imagine.
Yeah. Manufacturers don't make the parts to fix certain things anymore, so you gotta start from the ground up.
I'd say do it by 3D, but who wants a plastic widget in an elevator that's carrying all of us?
No.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll open it up to remarks by the chairs and rankings. Representative McCarty, ranking of education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's a delight to be here with all of you. We've waited for this day for quite a while. Thank you.
Senator Berthel, ranking on education and appropriations.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Looking forward to a productive meeting. Thank you.
Senator Austin, chair of appropriations.
Happy to see you all.
Representative Walker, chair of appropriations.
Thank you, and hello to everybody, and I look forward to the conversations. I'm very excited. So yes, waiting.
Representative Nuccio, ranking of appropriations.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be there, but now that I know that it's 8 million degrees in the room, I'm happy that I am not.
Let's see, Senator Martin, ranking finance. Okay, Representative Horn, chair of finance.
I was going to say good morning, but good afternoon. Nice to see everybody, even in this toasty room. Thanks.
And Representative Cheeseman, ranking of finance.
Thank you. Great to be here. And I'm enjoying the warmth in this room. Thank you very much.
And last but not least, our good co-chair of the Education Committee, Senator McCrory.
Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, I can't be there. I have a hard stop at 12:25. I have a very important meeting I have to go to, but I'm glad to see everyone. I miss you guys and Happy New Year.
All right. Did I miss anybody else that's online? All right. We'll go down to the review of the 2024 school building project priority list. If we could have up Commissioner of DAS, Michelle Gilman, if she would come up and please introduce the team that she has brought with her. And Commissioner, as you're introducing your team, if you could just kind of give us an overview. I know prior to the close of last session, you did a bit of a reorganization with respect to school construction over at DAS. So if you could tie that into your introductions and then get into the projects and your review process and all of that.
Certainly. So thank you again for the invitation to present in front of you. I also enjoy this on an annual basis, given the importance of our schools to our state and certainly our students and our educators and other staff across our school systems. I am here certainly in a hot seat today as we're all enjoying the heat, but I think I share that with everyone here today, except for those that are joining us remotely. But really, again, appreciate the time. I do, as you indicated, Chairman Curry, want to introduce my team, many of who have joined us over the last several months, and others who bring great experience and opportunity to the DAS team. So I'm joined by Ella Sun, who is the director of our grants unit, and she is within our business services team at DAS. I'm also joined by Brian Green, who is the director of internal audit for DAS, also joined Ella. I believe they started within about the same week or two, but we're really excited about Brian, who's overseeing not only our internal audit for DAS, but also overseeing the school audit team. So he has two separate functions that he's overseeing for our DAS agency. And then I'm also joined by our legal team under the Real Estate and Construction Division, Jenna Padula, who is our legal director for our agency legal director. And then also joined, sorry, let me get my full notes here. We've got as well Amy LaChance, who is a staff attorney and working on these issues as well. Very familiar to the committee and working with the Education Committee in particular. Melissa Conway, Director of Special Projects within the Commissioner's Office team, and she's a lead on our HVAC grant program, working closely with our grants unit. And then also she's been the lead on the new reporting requirements for schools, where they have to submit an annual form and a 5-year form regarding their engineering capabilities, their HVAC capabilities within schools. That was a new statutory provision this past legislative session. And I'm also remiss if I didn't acknowledge David Barkin, who's the chief architect under our real estate and construction services division. He also oversees the plan review portion of the grants team. So we split out the plan review side of the house. So that's working with school districts around their footprint for a school and making sure it's within the statutory standards that we permit under the statutes. And then as indicated, Ella is working on the finance side of the program with our business services team. And then again, Brian on the audit side, reviewing post-project, making sure that again, all applicable standards and statutes have been met. And so again, really proud of our team, not only for the work that they do day in and day out, but also for helping to create the 2024 priority list that's before you today.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So if you want, you can give us kind of an overview of the priority list itself, as well as the section for the projects that you've been able to handle administratively,
Certainly.
so that we don't have to.
Thank you. So you all should have the testimony that provides some additional detail regarding the 2024 priority list. Also, certainly you have the priority list that was sent to the full committee back in December. So just in summary, we have 11 projects that consist of 3 high schools, 3 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 magnet schools, and 1 pre-K school. 5 are renovation projects, 3 are categorized as extension alteration projects, 2 are new school projects, and 1 is categorized as the purchase of a facility. The total priority list has an estimated total project cost of about $583 million. And if the legislature and governor approve, that would set the state's maximum grant amount for these projects at approximately $470 million. In addition, there are 2 reauthorizations with estimated project costs of $41 million and change. change and a potential grant change of $39 million. Finally, there's one project within the list that's a request for forgiveness of $202,000. That balance is normally due to the state, and again, it's a request for forgiveness by the district. So we have other information contained in the addendums, as you perhaps have seen in your review. We've talked again about some of the standardizations that we've done within our program at DAS and some of the reorganization we've done. We're really committed and have done a great deal of work around our communications with school districts across the state. We're doing more to ensure that timely payments are going out to districts and that they also have a clear sense of the guidance and the requirements of the program. So really proud of the success that we've achieved since the 2 years, over the 2 years since the program came back to DAS, but certainly there is more to do to ensure a successful program. We are investing in new technology as well that will help support the DAS team and our school districts as we move forward to administer this grant program, as well as the HVAC grant program and others before us. And lastly, I do want to acknowledge that as conversations continue to come forward around sustainability and climate change, the grant program as we currently administer does contain provisions, and you'll note them even in the schools today. A number of these schools have high performance standards built into their priority programs. We do reimburse for solar, other efficiency measures, whether it's around their energy systems, their boilers, and other measures. And we're really proud to be ahead of the curve, given the statutes and the work that this legislature has done to ensure that schools do have the tools to look at those measures and include them in their new proposals or their renovation proposals. Certainly more that we can always do to ensure that we're meeting the goals of the governor and protecting our planet for the future. But we really look forward to working with schools on those measures and how we can continue to help them and have the conversation here with the legislature. And then in closing, as we continue to have conversations around the budget, our bond caps, and other guardrails that are in place, I know that the governor, the Office of Policy Management, our office, and then certainly the legislature as a whole is really watching closely the funding that we are investing into our schools and how do we balance the bond investments and other funding mechanisms that we're investing in our schools, also at a time when we need to be careful around our guardrails in the future. So more conversations to come on that. I think this priority list is certainly a manageable one in terms of our budget footprint, but is a point to watch and urge caution moving forward, not only this year, but in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before we get to the next item for a motion to approve and discussion, just a couple questions to follow up. So last year, you took a number of questions from members of the committee around diverse contracting. And I know you referenced a disparity study that was ongoing. So I was wondering if you could provide us with an update on that and how that ultimately may impact or answer some of the questions that members had last year.
Certainly. Thank you for the question. So the disparity study is an activity that DAS continues to support CHRO on, as well as OPM is another supportive partner to CHRO. We actually were really pleased to also be a part of the equity study that was just presented in draft form on Friday by CHRO. And we had a proud role in that process and in that event. When it comes to the disparity study, this has been an ongoing project for just about 2 years. Pleased to say that that should be wrapping, I think in the late February, early March timeframe. I do want to acknowledge again, Melissa Conway, who is here today, has been the lead for DAS on that disparity study, working closely with our procurement team, and in particular, our supplier diversity team within DAS. So again, that study should be wrapped soon, and I expect that there will be opportunity for public comment. We have been really proud to work with CHRO on this long-awaited study, and most important, really looking forward to the recommendations and how we can implement those moving forward.
Thank you. And so with respect to kind of opening it up for more folks to be involved in the school construction process, I mean, we currently in statute limit the number of like proposals per se that districts are permitted to take in with respect to projects. Is that factual?
I'm so sorry. Can you clarify?
So districts, when they go out for requests for RFPs for these projects, they're only permitted to go no more than 4 or 5. I think that's current in statute. Is that correct?
I'm going to actually defer to Jenna
No.
Padula on the procurement question. Jenna? Yeah, if you could come up. Jenna Padula, our agency legal director, and also works under the procurement or works to direct the procurement team on the real estate side.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a long walk to tell you, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
That's fine. I'll
Yeah.
grab the statute and we
Yeah,
can sit
can we
down and
talk
go
about
through
it
that.
after?
Yeah, I'm just
Because-
a little bit concerned. I have a lot of new concerns around school construction.
I don't know about any limits in terms of how many people respond. Yeah,
Not that you're not permitted to get any more than 4 folks to be
yeah,
able to
let's-
perform the
let's
work.
talk about that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And so that kind of gets into also as far as the audit process. I think as a legislature, we've seen things come back to us that have been deemed ineligible, that we're now asking or being asked to provide notwithstanding language to provide money back to folks. Just a little bit curious as to, is there a clear list of what is eligible, what is not eligible? And are we putting folks like contract managers, administrators on the hook for any of this? Because obviously they're the experts who are hired to oversee this. And why are they not catching these things in that process? And then tied to that, I mean, the timing process seems to be a bit extensive or flexible, that we're allowing a decent amount of time to go by from the start of construction to the completion of construction to the closing of a project to an audit being done and all of that sorts of stuff with, you know, paperwork gets lost, all of that. So
Mhm.
is there a way that we can tighten some of that up and also provide, I'll say, some more guardrails so that folks who we've hired as experts are also responsible for part of this?
Mhm. Thank you for that question. And I'd like to call out both Brian Green and Ella Sun from our team, because I think they can add some day-to-day experience that they're having with our school districts on this, and also some of the work that they've done since they've joined DAS around how we're communicating the requirements around the program. I think, you know, from my experience, it is clear from our engagements with our school districts that we are communicating what the eligible and non-eligible expenses are. But often because of the timelines that these projects are engaged with, change of personnel on the school sides, changes of contractors and other factors, you know, that may not always be the case, that in the day-to-day practice, those items are adhered to or addressed. So with Ella's support, with Brian's support, we are working with our school districts to remind them of the requirements when they engage in a school construction project. So we have communications that have gone back out to school districts and then working with those school districts on an annual basis, and then certainly on an ad hoc basis as they come forward to us about those expenses and what is reimbursable, what is not. And then as we work with them on a quarterly basis or as needed around their payment schedule, we are monitoring the documentation that they're required to submit to us to ensure that it is a full package. And if it's not, that they understand what they are missing in order to receive that payment, whether it's a quarterly payment, a final payment, or receive their final audit payment. But again, I want to defer to Ella and to Brian for additional comments in terms of what they're seeing from the school districts and how we're addressing some of those communication areas.
Yeah, and before they do that, so is there a requirement at DAS that your team meets with the boards of education and the city prior to that final submission to ensure that everything is good to go?
So that may be a question as well for David Barkin. So I'm going to bring David up as well. David, again, is our chief architect, but overseeing the plan review team that is working to approve the plans that schools are submitting. So David, do you want to start off?
Yes, thank you. At the point where the district is asking to go to bid, they need approval from DAS, and that's the documents are provided, and there's an extensive checklist, and it's called the ICW, the ineligible cost worksheet, and it just lines out item by item what's eligible, what's not eligible, and that's done at the point they're going into construction, and then that's further filled out at the end of construction. There really shouldn't be too many surprises on that if it's done correctly and it's understood what's going on.
So that is a requirement then that the team of DAS is sitting down or meeting with the boards of education in the city prior to submission.
It's called the PCR, and it's a mandatory, I think it's a statutorily required meeting, but I don't want to quote statutes here, but it's been a requirement for a very long time.
Thank you.
I think just to add that, so when after Dave's team does all the paperwork, so when it comes to payment requests, that's a form that when we review the payment request, we follow that information.
Good afternoon. Representative, once the packet, so to speak, from when the schools are completed, they finish up with grants, and then grants does what we internally call a transmittal that comes over to audit and basically lets us know that they're ready for us to kick in and do the final wrap up, and then send it back to grants. So to your point about things aging and not necessarily like a fine wine sometimes, you're absolutely correct. Some of these the process has taken longer certainly than it should have, and I think, and I can't speak for obviously any before I got here, but my sense is that certainly COVID had a huge part in that, in slowing that process down. So now let's talk about what we're doing today. That process is speeding back up, so to speak. The accounts examiners are working diligently to get caught back up, and we're working hard to get more current with all of the audits that we're doing. Now, there certainly are a few, I guess, what we'd call stragglers that we're catching as we go. And we work with the districts. We reach out to them by phone weekly, just to check in, say, hey, seeing how you're doing on your audit. Do you need anything? Everything okay? Generally, the answer is no. We'll follow back up with an email. We'll talk to you next week. Each of the audits has a due date. And if the district is having a tough time either locating the information because it's maybe the audit's a little older, we're certainly been working with them to grant extensions. We're cognizant of the fact that the longer these go on, the harder certainly it becomes to produce that data. Once the audit has been completed, we do a review with the district, which we call a concurrence form. And we'll go back to them and say, okay, here's the things that we found in addition to your ineligible cost worksheet that we feel are an eligible cost. Do you agree? Do you not agree? 9 out of 10 times there is agreement because we've talked about it as they come up and we find these things. We bring the audit to final audit. I notify the commissioner that here's the results from, no surprises from this particular school. And then I go ahead and sign and issue the audit report. It goes then back to grants where they finish up that process on the UO-WEO part of it. So if there is any monies owed on either side, that the state is doing their due diligence to get that money back to the district. And if the district does owe us money, we're working with them in order to try to recapture that.
What role does the construction management team have in this? And Jenna, that's the statute I was referencing when I was saying no more than 4. It's the construction management services.
I can answer that from our standpoint, we are working primarily with the school district, and they are contracting with the vendors, the construction management teams, the other vendors that have worked with the schools. We have little interaction with that team. They're contracted by the schools. And so our point of contact is really with the school districts, whether it's the superintendent, facilities manager, CFOs, and others. There may be occasions when they pull in the construction management teams committees. But it's on the school district's side of the house to really collect that documentation and be responsible with their building committee to make sure that that documentation comes to us.
So during this process, then should we kind of be reconsidering what the role of that construction management or administrator role is? I mean, if they're the ones being hired to oversee all of this, and then we're all coming back and we're having conversations about things that are now deemed ineligible, where somebody should be on the hook other than those of us sitting around this table at the end of the day. How do we tighten? Can we have a discussion further on how to tighten that process up, I guess?
Representative Carey, that's a great question. From an audit standpoint, I'm not an attorney, and I don't pretend to play one. But from an audit standpoint, ultimately we are contracting with the grant is going to a district, a town, city, an LEA. So ultimately, it's why we've tried to really be more upfront about the documentation and the things that they're going to need as they go through this. Again, no surprises. Nobody likes that, especially at the end. And certainly you guys are at the very end, and I know that you don't like them. So we work hard with them to make sure that they understand they need to capture the appropriate documentation as the project is going on. Ultimately, the grant is to the district, and they are ultimately responsible. Now, they certainly, the district certainly should be holding the construction management folks because they are contracting with them directly. As the commissioner said, that's, it's almost one step removed from us as far as the audit perspective goes, because the grant goes directly to the district. Don't know if I answered your question or not, but
yeah, no, I think it's just going to take additional conversation. I just think that we have to find a way to tighten this up so we don't year after year receive requests from members for money to go back to their districts that just likely should not be. It's just allowing bad behavior to continue where we should be doing better.
We would agree completely, and we would appreciate your partnership on that. Again, I think it speaks to the broader conversation of our bonding dollars and the wise investments on those. I do want to just note as well that schools are signing off on the agreements and the rules of the game as they're entering into these engagements with the state to receive bond funds. So they are coming forward, understanding, what is eligible, what is not, and also the vendors in the state. We are not talking about thousands of vendors that are doing this work. It's a limited subset of vendors, I believe, that are doing this work, and they understand this program and understand what is eligible and what is not. So we continue to do education with our school districts around those procedures and eligible costs. But I think it does fall on that communication at the local level as well.
So one last thing. So going back to the construction management services. So in that statute, that does say that they're not permitted to go receive any more than 4. It's a max, no more than 4. Am I interpreting that or reading that incorrectly, Jenna? I see you.
All right.
Just pulling the statute up in front of me. From a pool of not more than 4 most responsible qualified proposals.
You can get many responses, and then you would narrow it down to the 4 that you would consider the most qualified. And then from there, you would interview them and then choose someone. I don't know why. I just looked at the history and it's kind of hard to tell, but I don't know why the pool was to 4. I don't know if districts before weren't interviewing enough or were interviewing too many, if somebody felt. Or
yeah, so if you wouldn't mind going back and maybe getting a little bit of history on that, it just, I don't know, when we're talking about trying to open things up to allow more people to participate in these.
So like at the state level, we
seems like we're
may
limiting
get
that.
half a dozen responses, 8 responses like that, and then we narrow it down to the list, and then that's who we interview,
Okay.
So I'm not sure which, like I said, but I'll look into that and see which way the guy.
Thank you. So before moving on to the actual list itself for approval, do any of the members have questions on process overall? Yes, Representative Cheeseman.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I do have a question on process, and forgive if I'm describing this in the wrong manner. It's my recollection that schools used to go to SDE for updates on progress of their grant requests, and they now go through Core CT for those updates, and DAS supplies. Can you just fill So fill in the blank here. One, if I'm describing the process correctly, because I have heard some concerns that navigating the new process is not as simple and there may be delays in getting those updates. So if you could just fill in the blank for me, I'd appreciate it, Commissioner.
Certainly. So years and years ago, SDE actually managed the school construction grant program. So well before I was in this role, SDE really oversaw all of the programs. And then over time, it was statutorily moved to DAS. And then, of course, we know it moved to OPM for a short time and then back to DAS. Core CT is the system of record for the state of Connecticut for financial transactions. We do use that for our grant system at this time. I did mention in my opening that we are looking at some additional technology and functionality to make our grant process easier, both for our staff and for schools to submit applications and to monitor their status. We are a pilot agency among, I think, 4 across our state agency partners to look at, we're beginning the process actually to onboard a grants software solution. So that is moving forward. We're very, very excited to onboard that solution. We again think it will create a more efficient structure for us and then also for our school districts. But at this time, yes, they use CORE. They do have logins. They can monitor CORE. They have limited access, so they do need to round back with our team around status oftentimes. But we are doing more now with our grants team staffed the way it needs to be, and then with our audit team as well, to monitor, missing paperwork that may need to come in to process a payment, the requirements around, different receipts and purchase orders and other documentation. So as that new system is being developed, we are also working at the same time concurrently, really to ensure that our school districts have full transparency around the requirements needed so that they get their progress payments, their final payments, and other payments moving forward.
So in effect, if the school is not finding the information they need on Core CT, they are best advised to contact you directly and for the status. And part 2, and I believe we did the recent bond commission meeting or the one before, we actually bonded money for those rollouts of the improved grant application. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out. The goal would be with a new system to create more transparency, more ease on the part of that free flow of information with regard to all the grants that you administer, not just the school construction grants.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Commissioner, and your team today and for answering the questions.
Thank you.
I just have a couple. Could you just talk a little bit more about the time frame? Maybe I'm incorrect, but I thought we had put that from the beginning to the end, there was a certain amount of years that the districts had to complete the project. Can you just expand upon that a little bit for me?
Sure. I know that there were some recent statutory changes. So again, I'm going to ask Jenna Padula and then Ella to come forward because there were some recent changes on this. I can assure you that we are working to make sure that school districts do close out their applications and get us that proper documentation. And then we are working toward ensuring that school districts receive their payments within a 30-day window. So that's our goal, and we're working towards that now. But Jenna, Ella can add additional context around our statutory obligations.
So there is a statute that from the date of grant commitment to the start of construction, there's a 2-year time frame. And if you don't start construction within that 2-year time frame, the commissioner can cancel your grant. And then there's a time frame from the date that the district accepts the project as closed. I believe it's a year they have to submit their final paperwork without having a penalty, their request for final payment. And there was a recent statutory change that if we know that the district has accepted the project as closed, after a certain amount of time, we can deem it closed and move on with the audit. But there really is no time frame on how long the actual project could take,
Okay, that helps, but if the district didn't comply and they're closed out, is there any prejudice held that they can't resubmit at a later date going forward? We don't know this, and I'm just making this, we don't know what perhaps the circumstances were for the district that they couldn't finish during that time frame and they're closed out, but they can reapply at some point if they have.
They can
everything.
take as long as they
Right.
need to finish.
Right.
If they don't start within that 2-year time frame, they can ask the commissioner for an extension of that. Or they can just, if circumstances where there's something totally changed, they can withdraw their application and nothing precludes them from applying again.
That helps. Thank you.
Yep.
And then just to give Commissioner the opportunity, if you would just talk a little bit more about the high performance standards, what that encompasses and how you do. And as I went through, I looked at looks like you have air conditioning even on all of whether they're renovate is new. So I just give you the opportunity to talk a little bit more about that.
Certainly. So this is something I'm really passionate about, but equally as passionate is David Barkin, who I'd love to call up. David wears multiple hats for our agency. He's also our senior sustainability officer, which every agency has. But David's commitment and passion to climate change, our sustainability issues is incredible. And I know we have done a great deal in this space, not only for our schools, but DAS, as you know, oversees the construction of our state technical high schools. And we're doing significant work at Bullard Havens, which we've had the opportunity to visit recently at Platt as well in Milford. So we really would love the opportunity to just take a couple of minutes to talk about the sustainability measures included in our current program, and then also just a snippet on some of our other projects in this area. David?
Thank you, Commissioner. So let's start with the high performance building standards. That's a statutory requirement for any state funded construction, and that does flow down to schools that receive grants from our program. Now, we're in the process of rewriting the regulations. Actually, it's not it's a DEP regulation, but we are partnering with DEP, and that those regulations hopefully will be moving forward through the approval process very shortly. The current high performance building standards are somewhat dated, and they don't provide much of a stretch mechanism beyond basic building code because of the complexity that they're in regulation. What we're doing now is adopting, which is allowed by statute, effective a few years ago, a national standard that will be a sort of a high performance stretch code for both state construction and these municipal grants. So stay tuned on that. But specifically to Bullard Havens, I think we're very proud of. The legislature provided us through this program an additional $7 million as the job was being developed and designed. That's allowing us to move toward to install, and they are installed now, 240 geothermal boreholes. That's one of the first technical high schools that's going to have that kind of a system in place when it opens in, I think it would be, if I guess September 2025 school year for the new Bullard Havens Technical High School. And that's the first. And so when we look at upcoming, the replacement for Wyndham Tech and Vinyl Tech, also school jobs and also DAS construction jobs, we're hoping to do as well, if not more, and even extend that into the culinary arts program and teach the kids how to cook with electric, because that's the wave of the future. In certain places they're not allowing gas anymore. So we're really all on top of that and coming up with net zero schools.
Mm-hmm.
You must have been reading my mind, and I know my chair looked at me because every year I ask about geothermal. Is there any interest throughout the state? My district has gone to the geothermal, not every school, but most of them. And I think up front there's some costs, but long-term it's a payback, and it looks to me like it's, so I'm just really pleased to hear that Bullard Havens is moving in that direction, and like to monitor how you do it. Could you do this just for my own edification? I look back at all of the bonds that we did over the years and the amount to the school projects. This one seems to be lesser than, say, the last couple of years.
Yes.
What is the cap? Can you just tell me offhand what the cap is on the bonding?
I'm sorry that
Did we have a particular amount? I know in the past we had a certain amount and we couldn't go over that with the bonding. Do you know what that is offhand?
I do not. We can certainly get back to you on that. I think that we're concerned about the overall bond spend, you know, when we're looking at all bonds across the state. But we can certainly get back to you around any specific caps that OPM has in their planning. I do know, you know, some of the bond increases that we saw over the last year or so can absolutely be attributed to, you know, the COVID pandemic and where we saw you know, lack of construction activity during that time. I think that also speaks to the earlier question around whether projects were delayed, you know, and there were opportunities where we did indeed waive that 2-year requirement because we saw that impact on construction during the pandemic. We've also seen increased costs, certainly in construction generally. And so that needs to be part of the conversation when we look at the costs of construction, whether it's in our schools or other construction projects. But those escalation factors are real. And so how do we attribute for those in our bonding costs? We are working now on finalizing some standards around space requirements, and we have some outdated standards now on deck, but we are looking at some new mechanisms in place. And again, really being transparent with our school districts around costs and, you know, what would be a standard requirement. So more to come on that, but we are looking at appropriate sizing for schools, whether it's property requirements, space standards within a school, obviously being flexible based on whether a school system or a school building is renovated, whether it's an older footprint with wider corridors and other, you know, unique circumstances. But that should also bring some additional predictability and stability to those costs moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And so as those costs we see increasing, are we assuming that that is typically due to the cost of materials? Yes.
Yes, that is correct. And I will say at this time, we are starting to see some of those trends slope down. So it's a good trend for us to see. But where we'll see that, you know, and we're seeing that in a moment of time, not sure what the, you know, new economic indicators will show in a year from now or 2 years from now. So something to watch, but materials are the primary cost driver, I would say, for those increases on the construction side.
And so if the total overall cost of the project increased due to materials, is there any additional payment being made to any of the consultants that they're bringing on? Is there any language worked in that is not permitted because it's typically a cost increase due to materials and not their technical services?
So the DAS commissioner has the ability to approve additional scope or cost increases administratively to a certain degree. And so we have seen those, and I have approved of many of those as they've come through, especially over the last 2 years while I've been in this role. And again, there's justification required around those increases, but primarily it is cost drivers around materials and ancillary costs related to construction.
But there's no language prohibiting any increased payment being made to those who are doing that contractual work when a project increases solely due to materials increasing.
Just a moment, please.
Yes.
Attorney Jenna Pajula.
They're not our contracts, so I can't really say for sure. But I would hope that municipalities would have some sort of language in their contracts, yes. Yeah, but we don't have a requirement for that. You know, we don't tell them what they have to have in their contract.
At all?
Well, beyond, you know, statutory, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe we'll have additional
Yeah.
conversations around that too.
Yep.
Just if we're spending money, if something is increasing simply because the cost of a piece of something is,
Right,
I don't think that correlates to anybody getting more money overall.
right.
Yeah,
And would that be part of their contingency planning? You know, are they looking at their contingencies, you know, within their own contracts? That should all be part of their discussions as a
Right.
school building committee. And so are they building in enough of that as they engage with their contracts and vendors?
Excellent. Anybody else have any process questions, General Rep McCarty for the second time?
Sorry, thank you very much. It's just, this may be difficult to answer, but I've always been curious as to how some of the school buildings go to build to the like new condition compared to just building a new facility. I'm just wondering, does DAS work with the district and do a comparative study to see what the differential would be with the costs? And I only say that because I know of a couple of instances where later I heard it would have been easier and probably more practical to just build the new facility rather than to try to restore it to a like new condition. So I know it's hard to answer. It's a kind of a hypothetical, but just wondered if during the process, if you do like that kind of analysis for the district.
Is that something for you or for David? I'm going to ask David Barkin to answer that question as he's engaged in that early planning stage. And we can speak to what is the current process now since the program came back to DAS these last 2 years.
So there is a renovate or or renovate as new or renovate is RNV status versus new construction. It's my understanding that the reimbursement rate is higher for a renovate than it is for a new construction. However, if in that analysis, it's determined that it's more expensive to construct, to renovate a building than it is to build a new building, then it's my understanding that the district gets the higher reimbursement rate and that on a new building so that they're not penalized for doing a more efficient thing. But there's many reasons why they might want to renovate a building. Maybe it's because part of the urban fabric or it's a neighborhood school or so on. So that is up to the district, but that analysis is done. And so they can't just go to one step. They couldn't just go to new if it's determined based on the sizes and everything, it's more efficient to renovate without.
And to
That
clarify,
helps
your
clarify
team
that.
works with
Thank
the
you.
school system with the school system on that analysis.
Yeah, those calculations would come through plan review.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative.
All right. Anyone online? For right now? No? All right, we will move on to item number 4. May I have a motion to approve the 2024 school building project priority list?
So moved.
I have a motion by Representative Horn, a second by Representative McCarty, and I will open this up for discussion. Anybody online or in the room? Representative McCarty.
Just if I may, on a personal note, I'm so pleased to see that Learn is on the list in front of us. And I can tell you that this is a great need in our district. And I know the work of the RESC and Learn, and they're just stellar in what they do. But this is particularly relevant to the needs of our community because we have so many we need infant toddler spots, and this is going to be part of it, and particularly unique and wonderful for our state is looking at the special education program that will be housed in this particular project. And and this is just a comment, thank you, Mr. Chair, but I'm so pleased to see that. And I know the community, that it's in Waterford and the community is excited about it. And I just want to make that comment that I think it's a wonderful project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online have any questions with respect to the priority list? I just have one or two. Are any of the projects on the list part of any school district consolidation plans? Are you aware of that? And do we require that information to be collected, I guess?
We are not aware of that information, so we can certainly get back to you as to whether that is part of the footprint of those local school districts. I know there are discussions certainly happening at the municipal level, and they're having preliminary discussions in some cases. We will continue to keep an eye on that as well moving forward, but we can round back with you. To our knowledge, none of these schools are part of those efforts.
But we don't ask that information as of now as part of the process.
Is that part of our?
Okay.
uptake? No.
Thank you. And then with respect to the schools up for reauthorization, have any of these, they were approved in 21, have any of these actually started their construction?
We can get back to you on that as well.
Okay.
I know that we're actively working with those school districts, but we can get back to you about the actual status in terms of design and construction.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions from members? Representative Cheeseman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this relates to your question for reauthorization. When schools come for reauthorization, what do we learn about in terms of what the delays have been, or is that not information not required?
My apologies. I'm going to ask Jenna to speak to that again as well. There could be a number of factors here based on my understanding.
And actually Ella might want to answer too, but, we require a district to submit what's called I don't know what the form number is, but a reauthorization request form. And they're supposed to provide enough, what they consider enough information for someone to make a decision. So it's sort of like on the district. And if we feel at the agency, there's not enough information for the commissioner to make an administrative decision, we would go back and ask for additional information. And if it's something that seems to exceed a request we would approve administratively, then it would appear on the priority list for the legislature.
So of schools that come before you, do you ever turn down a request for reauthorization?
Yep, sometimes, yep. But if we do, they have the opportunity to ask you. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And as a
Thank you.
follow-up, so that reauthorization form that you said that they submit, does that include additional costs for any consultation fees?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and
Thank-
sometimes, yes. Most often, a reauthorization request would be for increased cost, but it's really for a change in scope or cost.
Okay.
So could be less expensive, I suppose.
That'd be great. All right, any other questions from members online or in the room? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you please take roll? And before she does, we'll make an announcement that we are going to hold votes open until 3 p.m. As I know we had some members who had to jump off. Madam Clerk.
Roll call vote on the 2024 school building project priority list. Representative Curry,
Representative Curry votes yes.
Senator McCrory, Representative McCarty,
Representative McCarty votes yes.
Senator Berthel,
Good morning. Good afternoon. Senator Berthel votes yes.
Representative Walker,
Representative Walker votes yes.
Senator Austin,
Senator Austin votes in the affirmative.
Representative Nuccio,
Senator Nuccio votes yes.
Representative Horn,
Representative Horn votes yes.
Senator Fonfara, Representative Cheeseman,
Representative Cheeseman votes yes.
Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance today. Thank you to DAS and your team. I'm sure we'll be having additional conversations moving forward for this session. And with that, again, votes will be held open until 3 p.m., at which we will be adjourned. Have a great day, everyone. Yeah, we're officially in recess.
Hi, Senator.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Hold on. I had you muted. Can you hear me all right, Senator?
I hear you, yes.
Great. How would you like to vote on the school construction priority list?
Who's the Senate chair? Is that McCrory?
Sorry, it's a bit loud in here.
Who is the Senate chair? McCrory?
Yes,
How did he vote?
he has not voted yet, but
Oh, he's
everybody
not
else
voting.
yes so far.
I'm a yes.
Great. Gotcha. All right. You should be all
Thanks very
set.
much. Thank
Have a-
you.
Yes.
You too. Bye now.
Hi, Senator.
Hey, I'm voting
Yes, how would you like to vote?
yay in affirmative. Yay in the affirmative.
Okay. All right, you're all
All right.
set.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, Senator.
Sorry, I had to step out. I had another meeting.
No
Uh,
worries.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Awesome. Got you down. You're all set.
All right, thanks. Have a great.
Have a good day.